Right, traders, in this part of our session we're going to spend a little bit more talking about the days of the week and obviously the way in which we can provide a circuit breaker for those days that hit our potential max drawdown on our system. So as we mentioned before, we've got a situation here on Tuesday and Thursday where we've exceeded the max drawdown. We identified $1,600 or negative 5R as our maximum R break. So at some point when we're running these systems in a live situation or in simulation, we want to make sure that we're monitoring the days of the week, particularly if we're getting close to that maximum drawdown. So how do we do that? What is the way in which we can, within the strategy, how can we facilitate having a circuit breaker within the strategy to ensure that even if we potentially can't be watching the system 24 hours or can't be watching the system during its live session, that the system will only take the trades that it's allowed to. So basically it can't exceed that maximum risk. So the way we do that, obviously here, I'll go into the trend trader here for a second as an example. If we go into our strategy, in any of the strategies, the GMT strategies, you've got a component called your max session trades. You've got either trades or dollars. So here is where we would make that adjustment. We would set that to true. Now the maximum number of wins, we're not really concerned about how many wins we have, obviously, but if we're in a situation where we can have one losing trade, then we need to identify that, yes, look, it's, say for example, we're on Thursday and we're on the cusp of having the system turn off. We've got a risk of $320 per trade. Let's assume that we have $320 of risk left in our that day of the week. Then we would need to turn that to one losing trade. The other option for us is to set the max profit and loss to true and set that to negative 320. So that way, either way, we're setting our risk profile up. So we want to make sure that's definitely the case. Now, if you do set that up, you want to make sure that when you go back, when that session is finished, and say for example you don't hit your max circuit breaker, then you're going to want to modify that for Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, whatever days you're trading, because once you put that in the strategy, that's going to stay in the strategy for all days of the week. So it doesn't apply to a specific day, but if you've got the strategy turned on and you've set the requirements, then obviously that day is being traded, but you'll have to modify that for the next day of the week. So just something to be aware of. That's really one way of doing it. Otherwise, you could potentially just manually watch it. Once you see the trade and the session finish, you can turn the strategy off if it has that losing trade. But either way, you need to put in some mechanism in place to ensure that you stop the system trading if it does hit your circuit breaker for that day of the week. Because clearly, as we rolled through September, this strategy has gone south and it hasn't really bounced back. It's just had loser after loser after loser. So we're going to spend a little bit of time here shortly going through the reason why that would have happened. And remember, this is a shorts only strategy. So as I said before, you want to set your system up so you're identifying what days of the week are actually making money and what days aren't, and where you're potentially going to need to put that circuit breaker in, and then you're watching as part of your due diligence to make sure that you're not giving money away on a Tuesday or a Thursday or whatever the day is. Because clearly, if we weren't on our game during the process of tracking this strategy, we would have given up around about $1,900. So a huge difference between running the system without any modification or without any optimization, and then running the system with careful attention to the days of the week performance. So that's interesting. And let's have a look. Let's go in now to have a look at to crude oil. So we'll grab crude up here on a daily. Now the biggest issue for us was basically September. September is where everything went really pear-shaped. So if we have a look at what happened in September, you'll see that two critical things happened. Our direction changed in September and our volatility changed. So while this system has done really well, what's changed is the volatility has jumped up over 80, and the other thing that's happened is that we're in a sideways market. So look, yes, we did make money in this sideways market here from May through to July, no problems there. However, what we didn't have was we didn't have this high volatility. So clearly this system works really well in a sideways to bearish market, but it works very well with volatility below that 80 level. So when we get a drop in volatility, which we've got now, as you can see, we're climbing into October, around the 15th of October there, and you'll see if we go back to the strategy, let me just move this out of the way for a second, we're starting to get a bounce back. So you can see here, if I bring up the strategy and we see the volatility drop again, and we'll go to the 20th, we'll push this forward, you'll very quickly notice that as we wait for it to come on, you'll quickly notice that we've actually had a spike in improvement. So from around about the last week of September, last week is September, and if we have a look at what's happening on our market, the volatility starts to drop around about October. So October is where we start to see a little bit of a drop in volatility, and that's where we see the performance coming on our system.